Well, hello everyone, and welcome to Healing Wednesdays, and of course, the Circle of 12. I'm Lee Carroll.
And I'm Monica Morani.
We're back. Happy Wednesday, October 26th. Every Wednesday evening of the year, we come together with special guest questions and answers, discussions, meditations, and of course, Cryion channeling.
Now, if you're watching the replay of this, isn't the portal amazing? I just love what the team have done and created this beautiful, elegant, I even want to say sexy portal. So much easier to use and navigate. There are so many things within the portal that's designed for you. You can get the latest replay. You can go in and submit a question to us. You can also go in and listen to all the special music that we have done from certain shows. There's special shows just for members, and there's also an area for prayer requests and testimonies for our Miracle Moments section and much more.
Well, we often review the chat logs for this show, and we truly enjoy seeing what you've said and how much fun you all have, and we love the comments that you make and how much you've enjoyed the show. We also see that in the first part of the show, sometimes there's issues with like no sound. How do I get the sound? I refreshed, but things are not working. Sometimes it's our wonderful new members just getting used to the interface, but other times it's just the internet that day, as you know how these things work. If it's on our end, we'll always tell you, since our techs are carefully monitoring the quality of the stream. However, I've told you this before, are you aware, 15 minutes before we start this program, we run sound and video for you to test 15 minutes before we start the show. And our chat team is right there during this time to help you. And remember, if you have trouble, all these programs are perfect, have perfect replays forever as long as you remember.
Now, I mentioned earlier that you can submit a question in the portal, and the guidelines for doing that is very, very simple. Ask a question that you think others may be interested in. No personal questions about things happening in your life that needs a therapist, because let's face it, Lee and I, we're not therapists. We can only share with you the beautiful teachings that we've learned through Cryon's wisdom, and then make those questions concise and short. Now we're going to take our first question for this episode. It comes from Stephanie. Stephanie is in Georgia in the US, and Stephanie's asking, how do I find more joy in my life? I want to move away from the fear, worry, and doubt that seem to have ruled me for most of my life. But recent heartbreaking losses are making it harder than ever to find any joy. I don't want to feel like a victim. I want to know my magnificence. And then we have Bjorn from Sweden asking a similar question, saying that I have been following the work of Kryon for over 10 years and feel a deep gratitude for all the help and wisdom it has brought. I have a knowing that my life is really great, but somehow I go through life often not at all feeling joyful. I practice gratitude, but somehow the feeling of true joyfulness, it's hard to come by. What am I missing?
Well, Stephanie and Bjorn, I think you both echo what so many of us are feeling on a daily basis. Truly, for everyone, for myself, it's tough not to doubt when all around us we see this attribute in perhaps ourselves and so many people. And in some cases, it seems to be, if you've noticed, a popular thing to complain about life, like it's some kind of a badge of acceptance in our culture. And it's almost like we're all taught by others to doubt ourselves and everything around us, and it's kind of almost like a habit. And we try not to do it as well, but when others are all doing it and you get around, you know, it's almost self-perpetuating. So let's discuss this from a very human, esoteric perspective. When people sit around and talk about complaining about everything, they actually enable what they're complaining about. Now, this is not for the two of you. This is more generic, but I just have to bring it up. It's called the law of attraction that so many of us are starting to see, though. So the lack of self-worth is, I say, it's almost a self-perpetuating thing. You know, what a deal. Then when some of us have something heartbreaking happen to us, or even negative happen to us on a regular basis, it seems to almost validate that we're somehow unworthy. How are you so far with this? This is life. And you're right to ask this. Finding joy is about reframing our perspective on our own reality, not what others show and tell us. Let me say that again. Finding joy is about reframing our perspective on our own reality, not what others show and tell us. Now, I have even moved away from former friends who had those kinds of habits because they dragged me backwards. I don't know if you've ever had that particular situation in your life. And so I know it's tough, but I find myself trying to control who I'm with in the situations so I don't see that on a regular basis. I regularly move in and out of this very problem. People won't, when you think of, well, you're the channeler and you're the one who's given the show, but there are always issues that can beat us up emotionally, and that's just life. Plus, our culture does not support us very much in the self-worth department. Have you noticed? I mean, often many of us are told we can't do this or that, or our church tells us that we're actually unworthy because something we had no control of, or we have no idea of it, and it's on and on. So we have to find joy internally, intuitively, on our own. So finding joy is not something we're going to, grab out of the air. It's work. We have to do it. I've worked on this a lot of my life. Luckily, Cryon tells us we have the tools to do it. Don't you love that? It's true. We do. I do it by being alone, dropping into my heart, as they say. Now, that's an expression, but it really means being quiet for a moment and taking a few deep breaths and finding that quiet place and starting to give thanks for everything that is good around me. Now, you're going to say, well, what good does that do? I'll tell you, it does something. Then I'll tell you. I start loving and giving prayers of energy to everything that I can't control, that isn't good as well. So the result is that I'm using what is called compassionate action to help me to be more compassionate with myself. These are actionable items, stuff I do. I sit and do it. And what happens to me, the result is I often feel far more relaxed about myself and joyful for my own existence. I've noticed that over time I start seeing things differently, and I do. And joy comes more easily than on a regular basis. And the next thing I do, and this is really critical and important, even though you may not feel like it, or I may not feel like it, what I do is laugh. I try to find things that'll give me a big laugh, and it makes the difference. It really makes the difference, all the world, a difference in the joy factor in your life. So, for all of you who are having trouble finding your joy, it's about working on yourself. I recommend this kind of compassionate action on a regular basis to kind of get over yourself, in my case, to get over myself, and anything that might cause me to doubt who I am. The truth is that we really are magnificent beings, and part of our journey is to see and understand this. Once we get to that point, we begin to settle into ourselves, and almost everything around us diminishes any negative impact on our self-worth. In other words, this is a cumulative exercise. It's almost like exercising to get a muscle. The more you do this, the easier it is to find that joy spot. Our magnificence is not about being important. Our magnificence is instead about being part of the love of the universe. That's where I go when I feel I need to understand and have more joy.
I love that answer, Lee. And you talked about compassion, and I love how it begins with yourself. You have to have compassion for yourself. And in the situations where you are having heartbreaking loss, there is a period of time that you need to allow that grief to move through you. So you can't just go straight from that grief and heartbreak to laughing at silly comedies.
This is work.
It is
This
work.
is work, and that's why I answered the question in the way I did. Because it's not something that we just go, I do this or that, and suddenly I have joy. No,
and
gotta work
it's
on it.
hard when someone gives you platitudes. I mean, and these people know that they're doing gratitude and everything else.
They are.
But I love the practical things, and I want to just add a little bit extra from my point of view, and that is if you love animals like I do, go and play with puppies or kittens or rescue animals or something that gives you that spark where you can connect in something that's easy to relate to. I mean, who can't relate to puppies and kittens? But if that's not you, maybe be creative with painting and start doing artwork or any little spark that is your joy. Connect with that and then just keep, like Lee said, it's cumulative. Keep doing that. So, and also I want you to know that we are with you. Everyone that hears this question and hears your situation, you have like an incredible love pulse coming right at you to support you in working this puzzle out. So we'll go to the next question now. And this comes from Gloria. Gloria is in Phoenix, Arizona. And she is saying, there is a lot of information out there. Oh boy, Gloria, I hear you. There is so much information out there. And Gloria continues, the more I discover, the more I am confused. How do we get clarity and decide what is true?
Love the question, Gloria. Let's expand the question to include another one I'll give that's even similar. How do we sort out all the many Healing Wednesday guests and processes they give? Which one is for you, for me? Which one is right? Which one is not right? There's so many. Which one, is it that you're going to use? You're going to try them all? How do you make sense of it? That is very, very similar to your question in general. Here's the answer for you and also for those who ask about the many presenters we have on the show or the amount of information that's out there. What do you do with that? That's your question, Gloria. So here is the answer. Each of us is unique. We're so unique. The things that work for some, they just don't work at all for others. So the answer is this. Many things will be presented. There's a lot of stuff out there. But look for the one or ones that resound to you. Yes, you can get a signal, if you want to, from innate, from spirit. And it doesn't always resound. Sometimes it does. I like to compare it all to food because I like food. We really understand how it is to have a selection of food in front of us. I mean, that's very common. And we enjoy some of it more than other things. Well, when we learn from health practitioners and experts that many foods work great for some people and they don't work at all for others. So what information resounds to you? If you can't really discern this for yourself, there's a way. Now, this is part of the answer, probably the big part of the answer, because when I say let it resound to you, that could sounds like a platitude. You've got to have a way of judging it. At least I did. Now it's pretty intuitive, but here's what I do. If I know that there are some choices I need to make, and I'm unclear about it, and that's quite often the case in my life, I simply say, Dear Spirit, help me to recognize what is best for me. Let me intuit what the best process is for me or the best information for me. I'm asking for a sign or an intuition or a flash or chills. And now here's what I also want to say to everyone. You either believe this works or you don't. You probably wouldn't be watching the show if you didn't. We have the ability to directly talk to our inner selves, our soul, and our innate. This is the basis even for kinesiology, muscle testing. We can communicate with a smart part of ourselves to give us signs. So, Gloria, let's affirm together, you and I, that we can ask for these things to show themselves so that there be no more confusion, no more overwhelm. It works. I have done it. I still do.
So I think I'd like to move into a meditation and then we'll go into a channel. And because we've had people asking about how to find joy, let's use that as an inspiration for the meditation that we're going to do. And I invite you to close your eyes and imagine, feel, sense, or visualize that you're about to enter a gift shop. And you open the door, and within the gift shop, there is one gift that has a label that says, "The Box of Joy." And next to the label is your name. And you're going to walk over towards that gift, the box of joy that has your name on it. And as you hold that box, I want you to feel and sense the cells of your body in anticipation of opening that box of joy. What is it? What's going to be in there? What is that surprise that is waiting for you in that box of joy? And just connect in with your innate and your higher self and your Akash and your entourage, your guides and angels. They want you to find your joy. And as you slowly pull off the lid to that box of joy, just go with whatever that first intuitive hit is that is inside that box of joy. Some of you are going to feel it instantly and recognize it immediately. And for those of you who may be disappointed that it's a black, empty box, there is no such thing, because that is just a filter that lies on top of a joy, a deep joy that exists for you. And then give the intent that you will receive help to remove that filter so that you will find your joy. And then in these coming days and weeks, look for signs and synchronicities to show you what that joy is, or to confirm when you find your joy, thank you for finding my joy, bring me more. Bring me more joy. Thank you. And with that simplicity of that message to just bring us more joy, I would like to have my joy come in the form of the Cryion channel.
Greetings, dear ones. I'm Cryon of Magnetic Service. There have been so many questions about how to. But the one that even was covered this day by my partner, how do you know? How does intuition work? How does the field work? I gave a channel some months ago that I'm now going to repeat in an abbreviated form for you. And it contains a metaphor, which is the best kind of explanation for some of you. When we talk about how do you know? We have spoken of the field many, many times. That when you sense the field around you, you're actually sensing everything that is happening at the moment. It exists in that form. You might say it's a soup of consciousness, which is energy on the planet, which doesn't necessarily tell the future to you, although some things are there which might point to it. It's basically what's happening now. Think of it as all the thoughts of all the humanity, and that somehow the ones that perhaps would pertain to you, your life, your family, are also available through intuition. The reason? So that you'll be able to move left or move right and perhaps dodge the obstacles that might be in front of you. Those obstacles and the things that perhaps would be pitfalls to you. Did you know that there's intuition that will push you out of the way of them? We have told you before that a light worker does not have to depend on luck, ever. Because you have the ability to change your reality by sensing the field. Those who have been doing this for years have friends who will say to them, "Boy, are you lucky." Luck has nothing to do with it. It is you tuning in. The question today, there is so much out there. How do you know? What works, what doesn't, what's right for you? My partner, he explained a portion of it. Let me give you the full story. There are those who don't like this, who don't like the idea that you're going to trust something completely and totally invisible. You'd rather have a person in front of you giving you advice because they're wise old souls, and they may actually have wonderful advice, but they're not connected to the field like you are. They are connected to the field for them. You have the ability to read for you which direction to go. Both reality direction, that is, you pick yourself up and go left or right, also decisions you might make, directions in your life. Isn't this the crux of almost everything? Should I or should I not? I have equated all of this to something that some of you are very, very familiar with. Something on the planet that you deal with and have been dealt with forever. I want to point to those who sail the oceans. Not just those who sail the oceans, but the ones from the past, who had a path that was the only path they had. In other words, their survival was how well they could sail. It wasn't something they did on the weekends. It wasn't for fun. It was in enormous ships that carried not only themselves but others that they were in charge of and responsible for. Cargoes that had to make it to a certain place. And they had to read the wind. So we're going to use the metaphor of the wind as the field. A sailor has some very interesting choices and some difficult kinds of things to do. Let's say that he wants to go straight ahead. And straight ahead is where the port is that he needs to be. He takes all of his measurements, he's got his compass, he kind of knows where he's going. In fact, there's no question of what he's supposed to do. But he needs wind to get him there. Now, in an ideal world, he would simply set his rudder for that port, set the sails at the right angle to catch the wind, and sail right in. But it didn't ever work that way, because the winds, they seem to shift around a lot. Sometimes the winds would come from a direction that was really quite far away from where he wanted to go. Now, what do you do there? And so he had figured it out. Sailors know. They go in whatever direction the wind is, and they tack. And they come about, and they sail in the other direction. So they may zigzag and zigzag because the wind isn't blowing the right direction at all for their goal. Are you getting this? So the first thing the sailor has to do with this invisible force is to sense which direction he has to move in order to tack. That direction, which will take him left or right, seemingly a far out of his way bearing he has to go to, so he can then turn and go to another and turn and go to another. And although it may not be very efficient, his goal is achieved, and eventually he'll get into the port. And so picture yourself for a moment with this metaphor. You sit and you have decisions about which way to go in order to get to that goal. Now, what is that goal? Let's say it's a goal of continuing the love in your life. The goal is to continue survival. In other words, it's a basic goal, the goal of health. Something that you have to do that's going to get you there. And yet the wind is blowing in the wrong direction. And what I mean by that is somebody comes to you, or there's an interesting situation that occurs. You say, well, that's not really what I had in mind, and I don't really think that that's going to take me in that direction, but I want to do it. Yes or no? And then you get the intuition flash, that invisible force that the sailor knows. He even reads the patterns on the water in order to know which direction the wind may come from eventually, when to tack. All of that is invisible. Dear Spirit, you might say, show me which way the wind is blowing. so that I will know what direction to go. And I will know, dear Spirit, that if it seems incorrect or wrong, I will dismiss that because I don't know what's in the field. You see, if I were to go straight ahead, and that thing that might achieve my goal of what I think I want to do, it might put me in a hole. It might put me in a place where something might happen. And so therefore, I will tack. I will go another direction for a while, and then I may turn and go another direction for a while. And these directions won't be the ones that I have thought of. They'll be the ones that the wind pushes me to. Dear Spirit, you might say, allow me to be pushed to those places I don't understand that will give me the health or the love or the things that truly are my goal. There was one or two, perhaps, even this day, who said, how do I find joy? Did you know there truly is an avenue for you? Perhaps it's in the things that you may do you're not doing now that are life-changing. Perhaps it's people you will meet, instructors sometimes, partners sometimes, a business sometimes, who will enrich your life, make you laugh, give you things, so that finding joy won't be difficult. Even in heartbreak, dear ones, joy is there. I want to tell you something. This invisible wind, I'll call it your team, and you may have heard this before in the Circle of 12, especially this month. It's your team, those guys, those angels, whatever you want to call them, who are always with you. They're the ones who are blowing the wind. As they say, follow this, follow that. Do you allow it? Or do you keep your eyes on what you think it's supposed to be? It's about you being open to going a direction that you didn't expect, that may very well then take you another direction and another direction. Just like the sailor knows intuitively he or she must do in order to reach the goal. Longer life, joy, health, without going through the pitfalls or the holes that you might fall in, or the wrong scenarios being presented so that you have to get out of them, or heartbreak. All of these things are in the field, dear ones. All of these things are avoidable if you pay attention to which way the wind is blowing. These are metaphors that I'm asking you to translate into action for you. And the way truly is allowance of these things in your life. Dear Spirit, calm me down a bit, so I will allow for things I don't expect. And then when they happen, I'll understand, and I'll follow that direction for a while, and perhaps change it for a while. But all of these things I will trust. They're the field, they're the wind, blowing in the directions to take me exactly where I should go. I give you these things in love. I'm crying in love with you, in love with the planet, in love with the humanity that is on it, because there are so many good things about to occur. Truly, things are better than they seem in so many ways. It is time to claim your magnificence and find your joy, all doable. And so it is.